justice system does not catch everybody who breaks the law. That's just the truth. After I bring you into prison, there's no way in hell you're going to walk out of there and be like, these people are animals or monsters. It's just not going to happen.
Mr. John Jackson, Executive Director of Defy Ventures, Utah. From being arrested at 17 to spending 18 years in prison, John is now helping incarcerated individuals transform their lives through entrepreneurship.
I had several businesses that I operated while I was incarcerated. I ran gambling pools. I sold all kind of other illegal items. If you've sold drugs, guess what? You are a great salesperson. We're going to take all these illegal skills that you've gained over the decades of gang and criminal involvement, and we're going to teach you how to use this legally.
You now head up the organization that gave you safe harbor, and I know that you are married to the person who essentially put the program together that saved your life and brought you home early. How'd you end up married to her?
She walked in and was like, look, guys.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors podcast. Real stands for Real Examples Altering Lives. And boy, do we have a guest and a story for you today. Today's guest is a now friend, colleague, and someone who I met by no mistake, Mr. John Jackson. John is going to share his story of resilience with us. I don't want to ruin any of it. So without any further ado, John, welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
Man, I'm doing awesome. I feel very grateful to be able to see you here, spend time with you today, share my story, learn from you, and share it with others today. So this is a privilege. Thank you for making it possible.
My pleasure, and thank you for being so flexible. As I know, we're a couple hours time difference, and you're up very early to make this happen. So we will be very respectful of your time because I know you're going to go out there and change your life today. And that's what we're aiming to do with this podcast as well, brother. So, John, I know your story. You spent 18 years in prison before coming home and completely turning your life around. But I want to go back to that time when you were arrested. I want you to tell your story. I want you to tell us a little bit about, your teenage years and exactly how you end up doing an 18-year bid.
Yeah. So something to highlight about that I really love to highlight about people's journey to incarceration, mine included, is that nobody's born a criminal. Nobody is born, incarcerated. There's a story that happens long before that. And for me, that journey started when I was 11 and I was on my way to school, and I saw my mom's car parked on the side of the road on the way to school. And I go over and I look in, and it was her murder scene. And I never knew my father. So I went to live with my mom's sister, with my aunt. And my aunt was a drug dealer. She was an entrepreneur, a really good entrepreneur, just misused her skills. But went to go live with her. And the first time I was ever arrested, it was when I was with my aunt, and she was selling drugs. We're in the car. She gets pulled over. She's got drugs in the car, and she leans over and she tells me, John, if the cops find the drugs, tell them they're yours. I'm already on probation. I get caught with drugs again, I'm going to prison. I already lost my mom, didn't know my father. I didn't want to lose my aunt too. So of course the cops found the drugs. I lied and I said they were mine, and she watched as I was handcuffed and put in the back of a cop car. I was 17. That was my first time being arrested. And that was the start of my career, my criminal career.
Wow. And is that when you were sentenced to the 18 years, or how did it get to that? Because that sounded like a minor drug offense. Your aunt did something that's all too familiar in circles like where we grew up from, which is pass the buck. Listen, you got less to lose. So can you take the hit for me? And out of love and loyalty. And as a kid, you did it.
You're right on. You're right on. It's like love and loyalty. It's like, hey, you're a kid. I'm a kid. You're going to be cool. But she's the bread provider, right? She's the one taking care of the family at the time. So it makes obvious sense of like, hey, we can't lose, the family can't lose the sole provider of food in the house.
Right. And the thought process, I guess, was you'll get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And she was right. I did. I got a slap on the wrist. So that wasn't what I did. I wasn't sentenced to 18 years for that, but that was the start, right? My aunt praised me. Good job. This is what you do. You protect family. And I was released, but she gave me just what I needed. That praise, the acceptance, the love that I really was craving, I got it. And I was like, okay, so I know how, now I know how to get, now I know how to get this. I know how to get this praise, this acceptance that I really, really want. And shortly after my release, I committed my first armed robbery. And before the end of that year, I'd committed 4 armed robberies, unlawful possession of a weapon, resisting arrest, evading arrest. It stacked up pretty quickly up for me. I made some really bad choices really quickly.
Yeah, I think it was just you were indoctrinated into that lifestyle, and what a tragic way to start and see your own mother murdered, and then have someone who you loved and cared for take you under the wing, only to lead you astray, because that was the lifestyle. And
But also, I don't blame. I'm not upset with her. I think we do this. Tony Robbins effective blaming, right? Like,
right.
I'm gonna blame you for the good. If I'm gonna blame you for the bad, I got to blame you for the good too. And
amen.
I got my hustling skills, my entrepreneurial skills, my grit, determination. Had that not happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I'm grateful.
You hit on something, and I want to stop there. We are both students of Tony Robbins and effective blaming.
Yeah.
I want you to circle back. Give us a little bit of a better explanation to the audience as to how someone can go through what you went through and still not hold any ill will towards your aunt.
So for me, when I look back, I used to be extremely angry at my aunt. I used to blame her and be upset with her about, I'm in prison because of you. That's just not true. Did she contribute to it? Yes, 100%. However, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today to serve others. I wouldn't have the grit, determination, the resilience that I have today. I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I wouldn't have any of the things that I have today had she not made the choices that she did to have asked me to take that drug charge. I didn't have to do it. I chose to do that. That was a choice that I made. Right. Yes, I was 17. At the end of the day, I still made that choice. So I can blame her and say, yes, Aunt, you made a really bad choice by asking me to do that and introducing me to teaching me how to sell drugs. But then on the flip side of that, you taught me how to hustle. You taught me how to be an entrepreneur. You also taught me the things that I don't want to be.
Yeah, mentors come in good form and bad form. There's mentors who tell you or show you what not to do. And then there's mentors that lift you up and show you what good things are that you can do to restructure or reforge your life. Now, you're doing this very long stretch. And California, or where exactly again?
In California.
California. So a very serious maximum security prison setting. When you find yourself away, I know that you do what you need to do to survive. Tell us a little bit about that moment when you realized or you just knew that something had to change in order for you to move forward with your life, even behind prison walls.
Yeah, so I was in my 4th year in solitary confinement because of my gang involvement, criminal involvement while I was incarcerated. And it was a day before I was supposed to go home. So originally I wasn't sentenced to 18 years. I had additional time added onto my sentence for crimes I committed while I was in prison. It was October 22nd, 2017. I was supposed to be going home the next day, which was my birthday. And instead of going home, I knew I was starting another 4-year consecutive sentence. And that was the day when I realized if something doesn't change, I'm going to die in here. Something's got to change.
Now, what does that process look like between knowing in your heart that you need to change, but actually starting to implement the things in your day-to-day life that allow you to start that process of change?
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't overnight. I didn't come out and be like, all right, guys, I'm done, I'm out. Like, that doesn't work like that. But for me, it was starting to distance myself from certain people who, man, just the homies that were always every day with the drama. Just every day with the politics, the drama, and the gossip, right? Like, okay, I'm done with that. Second part was, I guess I shut down a lot of my businesses. I had several businesses that I operated while I was incarcerated. I ran gambling pools. I sold alcohol. I sold all kind of other illegal items, and I gave that up. That was all of my income. I gave up basically 100% of my income while I was incarcerated because all it did was lead. Yes, it generated income, but it also led to trouble.
Did you have any support from the outside, or you were just you were doing your bid and on your own? That's why you were hustling to make ends meet and get your commissary buys and move the way that you need to move to survive in prison with some kind of lifestyle. And as someone who's been in prison, that may sound ridiculous to someone who hasn't. But I want people to know that there's a way to move and there's a way that you can operate. There's a different set of rules. What does that look like for you? Are you an island? I know you've got your gang affiliations, but are you connected to any of the people on the outside, your family, your friends still?
I viewed family as weakness, a distraction in prison. And that was a self-defense mechanism. That wasn't true, but it really was just the fear of being rejected by my family, the fear of being abandoned. So instead of allowing you to abandon me, I'm just going to cut you off and tell myself I don't need you, which served me well for a period of time, but didn't. So I had made the choice to cut my family off and not engage.
To be plain, what we used to say is all motherfuckers respect in prison is violence.
Yeah.
And anything that could make you vulnerable or perceived as vulnerable was eliminated. And you went all in on that lifestyle knowing that you were going to be there for a while. Now you've made this internal change, most importantly. You've made the decision in your mind and your heart to change, to want to go home, to do something different. You're cutting off the day-to-day things, the gossip, the bochinche, the daily jail bullshit that drags you back in. Because, this guy did that. He said this. Did you hear what Mo said?
Yeah, just chisme all day. Just all the chisme every day, all day. And all that stuff is I know where it leads.
Right.
It just, it leads to another solitary, and it leads to another term in solitary confinement. And it's like, for what?
Now, instead of discussing people now, are you reading? Are you working out? What's that transition look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the great thing is those things were already in place, right? That's the great thing about the organization that I was a part of, like reading and working out and being clean. Those were mandatory. Those weren't options. Like, you're going to work out, you're going to read, you're going to be clean, you're going to be respectful. Those things are mando. So I already had that discipline, but right along that time, Defy Ventures came, an entrepreneurship program. So I'd lost this huge part of my life that, and I didn't know what else to put there. And then boom, right at that time, Defy Ventures came to the prison that I was at.
I didn't mention that you are the executive director of Defy Utah when I introed you. And that's because I was so excited to get to the meat and potatoes of your amazing story. But you now head up the organization that gave you safe harbor behind those prison walls. Tell us about Defy and the fucking amazing story of how now you're the executive director on the outside of that same program that saved your life, essentially.
It really did. It would have been so easy to slip back. You take one thing out, it's so easy for something else to start to fill that gap. And in prison, there's plenty of things that fill that gap that are not positive. But Defy came as an entrepreneurship program that helps you build out a business plan, business model. And the core of it is we're going to take all these illegal skills, all these skills that you've gained over the decades of gang and criminal involvement, and we're going to teach you how to use them and go legit, transform your hustle. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to show you how to use this legally. And for me, that was exactly what I needed. It was like, oh crap, I'm already an entrepreneur. I just didn't know the business language that entrepreneurs out here speak of, like economics of one unit, the cost of goods sold. I didn't understand. I didn't know that language, but I knew it intuitively. I knew that if I re-up on this, I got to sell it for this so I can, reinvest my money back in and keep doing it and keep building my stack.
Right. And, essentially hustlers from the street are just street entrepreneurs, and they took advantage of the opportunities that were available to them. And we've seen it in hip hop, and we've seen a lot of guys rise from, your hip hop or your drug game to the hip hop game and then become moguls in the private sector because that skill set is interchangeable. Now, Defy, what kind of program, what are the curriculum there? What are they teaching the inmates so that they can get started down this path?
So we're starting with like self-limiting beliefs and coping skills, right? Because for so many people who are incarcerated, society calls you all kinds of names, right? You're labeled, you're an outcast. So we want to start working on the self-limiting beliefs, start building them up from personal development first, and then helping them identify the skills that they've acquired over the years. Like If you've sold drugs, guess what? You are a great salesperson. Now we just need to work on risk mitigation. So we work on them identifying risk. Okay, yes, you love taking risks, which is a great thing as for an entrepreneur, but now we need to teach you how to it's going to start mitigating some of that risk. You can't just keep throwing yourself out there. How'd that work out for you in the past? So then we'll have them actually start doing business ideation, customer segmentation, teach them how to actually write out a full business plan, numbers and everything, write out your business pitch, which culminates in us bringing CEOs and executives into the prison to do business pitch competitions. And we award prizes, and to our graduates, they actually earn money towards the launch of their business when they get out.
Explain to me the process for Defy. So I know Defy is this amazing organization that goes into the prisons. They instill this curriculum, starting with the basics that we take for granted. You know, one of the most important things that I learned during my short bit was emotional intelligence. You know, if everybody had 30 seconds to take back, there would be a lot less people in jail. I didn't know that, you know, there were layers of resentment, disappointment, and all these components that went into the anger. It was like, oh, something wrong happened to me, and straight to anger. But there were layers I was completely unaware of. Defy is doing something similar. You are bolstering people up. Oh, you sold drugs? You're a great entrepreneur. Just that reassurance opens the door to a belief that they can be something more. Is this a standard, do they come in and accept new students on a yearly basis? Is it a time curriculum, week by week, month by month? Explain it as, you know, to the best of your ability so that people can understand that there is a process. It doesn't just whimsically happen.
We have a very defined process and standardization across 9 states that Defy serves in. So what it looks like is we'll go into a facility, we will just do an open call for everyone who's at that facility. Hey, come and just learn about Defy, right? For those who are interested, they'll fill out a 28-page application. We just want them to have some skin in the game, right? We don't want to have a high barrier to entry, but we want to have enough that you got to put a little bit of work in to get this. After that's a 6 to 7 month program that they're going to be going through. It's over 2,000 pages of curriculum that they're going to complete over 6 to 7 months. They're going to be in class twice a week, 2 hours each time. And we base it as a cohort model. So it's around 45 to 50 incarcerated individuals in each class working together. So we build a tribe. Right. And we intentionally build it with, you know, all the different races, all the different gangs, because they're the ones causing the most problems in prison. So we want them to start getting together. And when they're doing this work together, they can't unsee and unhear the things that they see from each other. And they start to see, oh crap, homeboy ain't that much different than I am. Not really my enemy.
It's amazing. And you being out on the West Coast, the jail system is very segregated, more so than here on the East Coast, or at least in the Northeast in New York. It's not as segregated by race. There's a lot more mingling. But yeah, it's crazy because we all have more in common. I even said that to a CO one time as he was making me do like a punishment, and I had to go and, you know, shine up the brass knobs for doing some dumb shit. And we were just conversating, and I was like, you know, dude, me and you got more in common than you and that politician that you're talking to me about. And he took a pause because it was a realization. At the end of the day, yeah, we're all human beings. We're all flawed. But if we sit down and we get to know each other on an individual basis, you'll realize that I'm much more like you than you previously thought. And then that opens up the door to accept new information and new energy. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, a lot of this is energy, and we had negative energy, and now we're converting that to positive energy. We're starting to believe in ourselves. And then we've got this amazing organization that you are now, you know, executive director of out in Utah that goes in and lifts people out of these limited mindsets and then gives them something to work toward. I love the fact that they require a 28-page application, because that's going to eliminate the people that are just trying to get out of the cell or get something to do a few hours a week, because you would have plenty of those knuckleheads. And then they're just going to poison the well with the other brothers that want to actually make progress.
Even the ones who are willing to fill out that 28-page application, when I smack down a 400-page book in front of them, and they got to come to class, 4 hours a week,
prepared,
and they got to share their self-limiting beliefs, one or two things happens. They either do it or they drop out.
You mentioned something. They drop out. A lot of us drop out in day-to-day life out here in the world too. And then when we start to break those promises to ourselves, we start to feel worse about ourselves. It's like being friends with a compulsive liar, but you happen to be the compulsive liar. So tell us your story, please, of how you went from being introduced to Defy and then how long it took you to get released. And also, who got you there? You know, who was in charge of Defy? And how that's worked out for you as well, because I absolutely love that story, man.
So I was introduced to Defy by the founder. She had this vision at Defy that, you know, starting at the top of gang leaders and the like wherever you can go to the top, change will trickle down from there. So I was incarcerated at Pelican Bay, which is the White House for gangs in almost the United States. It's changed now. A lot of people have been shipped out, but at the time you had the leaders of all the top gangs in the country there, and came there, brought the program there. I graduated and I became a facilitator. I got to lead the program and teach the program, and eventually got to also MC the events where we would have hundreds of CEOs and executives coming in, and I would get to lead the events. So that was amazing. That put me in the spotlight of leading these events. I was still incarcerated, which had never happened. An incarcerated person had never led the events. But it's also where I met some of the people that you know that we could talk about here in a minute as well, who were coming in to volunteer and mentor and became my mentors. About 2 years after I graduated from Defy, I was released. I was released in June of 2019.
Wow.
From Pelican Bay State Prison.
What was your go home date prior to that? Did Defy have any bearing on you being released earlier, or?
It did. So once I stopped getting in trouble, of course, I stopped adding more time to my sentence. I had started that 4-year term. I got about 2 years removed from my sentence for good behavior and for engaging in programs. So when you're engaging in programs in California, every like 10 hours of programming is like a day off or something like that. I forgot what the formula was. So when I'm engaging in these programs, it was removing time from my sentence.
Awesome. Now, does Defy advocate on behalf of students within their programs, or what are the limitations as to what they can actually do to bring people home? And then that's a two-pronged question. In order to qualify for Defy, do you have to have a come home date, or can it be someone who's dealing with, you know, life in prison but wants to better themselves?
So I'll answer the second question first. You do not have to have a release date to enroll in Defy. And we actively target a certain percentage of people who are serving extended or life sentences, because they're the ones who are going to they're the elders. They're the ones who are going to be there long-term. They're going to become the owners of the program. They'll become the facilitators and the protectors of the program as it continues to grow and scale within that facility. So, and it's giving them hope, right? You got life in prison. Why do I give a fuck? Like, why do I care? Right? So if we can give them hope, we're not giving them anything. They already got it, but we're being the conduit that allows them to like, hey, I have a purpose here. I can serve my community, and my community is this incarcerated population that's right here next to me. Then they become mentors. They become the owners of the program, and they start to create change on their own. I don't need to be there to create that change. They become the change makers.
Wow. And can you share a success story that you've personally witnessed with Defy, other than your own, obviously, which is pretty damn amazing?
Yeah, so I would say one of my really, really good friends, his name is Jorge Batista. I think he did around 23 years in solitary confinement at Pelican Bay. Was first incarcerated when he was, I think, 17 years old, and knew the gang world really well. Like, you put him in that space, he freaking rocks it. Put him in a room full of non-gang members, and he like, we called him Sweet Turtle, because he would like go into his shell. Like,
so this is a dangerous man, but when he's in an environment that's completely unfamiliar, he hides.
Yeah,
it's a safe place.
I remember the first time we brought some coaches in, I was like, hey, come here, my homeboy, come here. And I never seen a person sweat so much. She was like dripping.
That harkens to the belief that we're not enough.
Yeah.
He knew in the world of gang culture, he was enough. He was the motherfucking man. But if you brought him in a room full of entrepreneurs, he's sweating, palms are sweating, he's got the little shivers going on. Holy shit, man. And I'm sure you have dozens, if not hundreds, of these success stories. How large is the program now in Utah and also nationwide? Because you mentioned you're in 9 states.
Yeah, we're in 9 states. So we've served close to 10,000 people. So far, we have a less than 10% recidivism rate when the national average is, around 40%. So we're cutting that more than half. So here in Utah, we launched last year, August 2024. We launched our first cohort, our first class at the Utah State Correctional Facility. We already started our second cohort thanks to that trophy right there. We raised a bunch of money. We raised around $50,000 at the Tony Robbins Business Mastery, which helped us to launch the women's cohort at the prison. So we have 2 classes now. And this year I've budgeted and slated for 3 classes.
Awesome. Now, so Utah's Defy Ventures program is in its infancy. What are some of the more established? Obviously, California, was that the base where it was launched?
Tri-state. It was originally started in New York.
Really?
Yeah. So
how the fuck do I not know this?
You got a chapter right in your back. You got a chapter right in your backyard. You Rikers Island.
I need that introduction when you get a chance, brother, because I know Casey invited me out. You know, since we mentioned Casey, let's talk about mentorship. Who were some of your early mentors, being that this is the Real Mentors podcast, in the Defy Ventures program?
One of my first mentors, his name was Freddie. He is the leader of the gang that I was from. He taught me how to operate in a business world. He's one of the most charismatic. He was first arrested. He was 32 years in solitary confinement, and is serving life without parole. He will never go home. He taught me how to treat people, when to be heavy-handed, when to be kind, when to choose forgiveness, things that you wouldn't expect from a gang leader, right? How to negotiate. I learned how to negotiate from him. Just watching and being a part of his conversations, I learned a tremendous amount of things that I use to this day, that I learned from him.
Wow. The fact that he can still dream, still find a purpose with no promise of ever coming home is remarkable, but it speaks to the power of transformation.
Yeah. Well, he's the one who made the decision. He's the one who pulled me over when I was making the decision in my life of, where am I going? Am I going to continue in the gang, or am I going to leave? And this, typically people don't leave the gang. There's blood in, blood out. Like, you're not going anywhere. But he pulled me over and he asked me, he's like, hey, is this really what you want?
Right.
I said, yeah. He's like, good, go home. You're too smart to be in here. You're meant for more.
I know that you are married to the person who essentially put the program together that saved your life and brought you home early and transformed your life. Can you tell us about her stature? Because it stands out so much to me for a woman to go into a max prison and go fucking basically toe-to-toe with shot callers and tell them, listen, you're going to let these guys better their lives. You're not going to fuck up their life anymore. How does she do that? And how'd you end up married to her?
I'm always amazed at just I don't know how to say, but the freaking balls it takes to go in and be like, go into a room full of some of the country's top gang leaders and be like, hey guys, like, you want to die in here? Like, cause that's what's going to happen. And she essentially walked in and was like, look guys, you think I'm scared of you because you're some big bad gang leaders? She's like, I don't care. You're going to die in here and no one's going to care.
Quick dose of reality. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the follow-up question is like, well, do you want to be known for more? Do you want to use your voices to create positive change?
Right.
The big question was, if you died today, why would your life matter? None of us had a good answer.
Right. The courage on her part to do something like that. Would you mind sharing her name? Just because I want to give her flowers and say thank you.
Yeah, her name's Kat.
Thank you, Kat, for just finding your purpose. And, obviously that has spread to your life now. And now you've found your purpose of helping others. I want to talk about some of the barriers to reentry. Once some of your students come home, the ones that do have a release date, that are fortunate enough to, and they've done the work, and they're excited to come home, there's still realities of the world. And there's still barriers. And there's still always that record. I mean, anytime I fill out an application, I am asked the same fucking question. And I will be till I'm dead and gone. Yeah. I'll be 60-something and apply for a loan, and it'll come up. How do you help your students prepare for that?
So what we teach is what's called our personal statement. So we teach them radical ownership, no excuses either. Like, oh, I was wrong place, wrong time. Oh, I grew up in the wrong neighborhood. So did a lot of other people. And they didn't make the choices that you made. So we teach them radical ownership. If I'm going to a job interview, if I'm talking to anyone, we have a 2-minute personal, what we call a personal elevator pitch, that they are, hey, here's who I am. Here's the bad choices I made, full ownership. Here is what I learned during my incarceration or my gang involvement, criminal involvement. Here's what I learned, and here's how I'm going to add value to you because of that. And I'm no longer that person. And then make a hard ask. Will you interview me? Will you review my resume? Whatever it is, but they will make an ask. And that's how we get there. We've found that it's the radical ownership part. It's so refreshing to people. I think it's around 90% of people lie on their resumes or lie on interviews. So guess what, guys? You're going to go in there and you're going to be very honest.
Right.
They're going to find that anyways. So let's get ahead of the story.
That is awesome. And how do you help shift that mindset? Because there's so much shame involved, and you run from that truth because you know, or you feel, because you don't know, you feel that someone's going to judge you.
Yeah.
So you already have this idea in your mind that you're not going to get the job, you're not going to get the call back, you're not going to get your application accepted. So why fucking bother, right? No. How do you shift their mindsets around that? Is it the authenticity part? Is it the ownership part? Or is there more to it?
There is more to it. I would say there's multiple parts. One of the most important parts is the self-limiting beliefs, right? That belief that you are going to be rejected because of this. And is that true? Part of it is, yeah, people are going to reject you because of it. But when we get to that radical ownership part, that's where we get to people. That's where I can touch your heart, right? That's where I can pull the heartstrings. The third part is bringing executives into prison who make hiring and firing decisions, who lead the culture at a company, and bringing them in. After I bring you into prison, there's no way in hell you're going to walk out of there and be like, these people are animals or monsters. It's just not going to happen. We tailor our events to make it so you can see that these are humans. These are people who made bad choices. And we ask you the question, what would it be like if you were known for the worst decision that you ever made? And at the start of every conversation, before you ask me for anything, that you need something from me, well, why don't you tell me some of the worst decisions you made, and then I'll then ask me for a favor.
Goosebumps, brother. Goosebumps, because for so long I ran from the truth because of the shame, and I changed my life so dramatically, and I was able to hide because I had money and I had status and I had a nice car, and I was in a place that didn't look anything like where I came from. And then it just hit me like, I cannot move forward in my life without helping others, and I cannot help others without telling my entire truthful story.
How does it feel for you now? How does it feel for you now versus...
So free, brother. I have forgiven myself, most importantly. I'm not a criminal in the sense of I wasn't raised in crime. I wasn't doing crime. I got caught up in a culture of crime that I thought was okay because you see it growing up. So you're on the outskirts. Right, and I'm working, but I'm hustling too. And then you're hanging around the wrong people, and then boom, next thing you know, you're in some situation that you can't get out of, and you're fucked, and you're doing 2 years in prison. But coming home, building a life, building a family, building a better new version of me, and still always continuing to grow into the person that I was always destined to be, I now accept that experience for all the value that it gave me. So the same thing you said about Tony, you're going to blame him for the good. You got to blame him for the bad. You got to blame him for everything that came about. Going to prison was the best thing that ever happened for me personally because it made me reassess my entire life and the decisions I was making. It allowed me to identify the emotional processes behind my short trigger temper. It brought my now wife to me, 17 years together. So similar to yours, I mean, in terms of you found the love that you so desperately wanted, even, in a time of tragedy and uncertainty. And the long story longer is, bro, just free. I feel free of the judgment that I was putting on myself. And then I created the limiting belief that, well, other people are going to judge me this way now. That turned out to be bullshit too. You know what I mean? Because the people that were at the gym or in my neighborhood or even the parents of some of my daughter's friends, embraced me even more when they found out that truth about me.
Yeah.
So to anybody who's struggling, who's ashamed of anything they've done in their past, it may seem counterintuitive, but the most powerful thing you can do is forgive yourself and then work through it, talk about it, deal with it, and accept it as your truth.
Yeah.
Because that pain, that shame is going to ultimately be the fuel for the next chapter of whatever you choose to do. Hopefully it's impact others. Whatever you choose to do, that thing it's holding you back. It's invisible. It's gravity. And that mindset shift is what you allow your students to overcome. And it's important that that's the first thing, because we all have this story we're telling ourselves. And
it's a bullcrap story. It's not true.
It's all bullshit, man. I mean, to the point where now I want to do these great things that I've finally taken the governor off and I'm starting to do them and the story's coming back. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. It almost never goes away. But you just keep pushing through it, and you, more importantly, you learn the tools.
Think that enough, when you've told your story enough and you see the impact that it has on others, my experience for me is it goes away. It becomes my strength. It's my superpower.
Right.
And my story, what I've been through, is able to inspire others. It's not always fun to share, right? It's painful to relive some of those things, but I know that, there's somebody else who's looking for that roadmap and looking for the way out, and I got it. And it's selfish of me not to share it.
That empowers the incarcerated to shift something in their mind, start to tell themselves they're good enough. How do you tell that same story to a potential employer? You mentioned bringing in different corporate entities, different executives to see these prisoners as human beings. Is there an immersion program? Are there internship programs when they come home? Because it's obvious that you guys are changing the way that people look at hiring an ex-felon. How do you pitch them? How do you market those things as strengths to a potential employer?
Well, first I ask them, how are all the people you hire without criminal histories working out for you? So, which is typically not great. The justice system does not catch everybody who breaks the law. That's just the truth. You have people who are actively breaking the law, who have broken the law, who are not the upstanding citizens they may present themselves to be. So I like to kind of challenge people. So I come in pretty hard sometimes. I'm like, well, how's that working out for you? But then the second part is just pointing to the statistics of people with criminal histories outperform people without criminal histories day in and day out. I think it's Mitsubishi that they did a study and they actively hire people who have criminal histories because their retention rate is much higher. Their absentee rate from showing up to work is much lower than people without criminal histories, because it comes from gratitude. Guess what? When you've been incarcerated and you're working for free, or you're working for 8 cents an hour, minimum wage sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah, man.
And you invested in me and gave me this opportunity. That loyalty that I had to the gang it now belongs to you.
Wow, that's beautiful. And something that I personally had never even considered until we just spoke about that. But how true. You're so thankful. Whereas people that are just getting up and doing a job to do it are so unfulfilled. There's no grace in it. There's no gratitude in it, because they can go get a job somewhere else where eventually they'll be entertained and then get bored and then fall into the same thing. Whereas many of your graduates that come home, they now have purpose. And gratitude is probably high on the list, if not the highest thing. I still remember personally, one thing I learned when I was in prison, we'd wake up and I would let my feet hit the ground. I am thankful for, and just rifle off everything that I was thankful for, whatever came to mind. And what a beautiful practice. But that's proof that even in the darkest place, you can have hope. And your story's just amazing. I want to ask you what's next for John and what's next for Defy Utah.
So for me, continuing to this year of launching 3 more cohorts, my mission is to serve as many people as possible, place them into jobs, help them launch their businesses post-release. That's the mission for me. This year, the goal is to raise $377,000 to scale the program here in Utah. We're already a third of the way there. We brought a powerhouse team to our prison event in January. where we raised over $100,000 in one day, which was awesome. It feels great to be a third of the way towards my goal in month one. That feels awesome.
Fuck yeah.
Next for Defy Utah, launched three classes of entrepreneurs at the Utah State Correctional Facility. Then we will start to build out our post-release program and our Defy Entrepreneurship Network, which is the post-release program. When they get out, we have partnerships with Google, and we're able to provide them with Chrome laptops. We have partnerships with LegalZoom. So our EITs, or entrepreneurs in training, are able to incorporate their businesses and then bring in the wealth of mentors and coaches who can help get them to the point where they've launched their business. They start running an MVP and build and scale their business so they don't have to worry about anybody judging me. Guess what? I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own business. You don't have to hire me.
Right. There's so much freedom in that. There's so much confidence in that. I always tell everybody who works and has a cushy job and they think they're doing okay, but they're unfulfilled. Yeah. It's like, get a side hustle, man. Just start to chip away at the doubts that you have. Yeah. But when you're coming home and you got nothing to lose and you have all these tools and all this fire, it's got to be exciting times for these guys when they come home, and soon to be ladies, at least in Utah. Does Defy do women's prisons in the other states, or?
Yes, we do. So we do the women's facilities in Connecticut, California. We serve a ton of prisons in California, in Utah, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Washington.
Nice. So your funding is it federal? Is it at a state level, local level, or private?
So it's a mix. So that California provides a lot of grants for the program. They've seen the results. They're heavily invested with us. The majority, it does come from federal, state grants, and the rest of it predominantly comes from individual donors. So we're a nonprofit, so that's where we're able to fundraise and raise from nonprofits and raise from individuals and companies and corporations. Apple is one of our biggest donors, and Apple and Cisco are two of our biggest contributors from a company standpoint. Yeah.
And do you foresee, or is there any fear on the horizon with the change in administration? I know there's a lot of rhetoric to, defund programs or the freeze, but I also know it's centered around fear and media, kind of misdirection. Are you feeling any of that? Is there fear for your programs to be unfunded? Is that a concern of Defy?
I don't have any fear. And I think, it's like just where students, Tony Robbins is like, challenge accepted. Like, if you think you're going to unfund me, you think you're going to stop me, like, you're not going to stop me.
Right.
Like, I've been beaten, shot, stabbed, and starved. What are you going to do to me?
Right.
Like, what are you going to do? I have a mission. I know what my mission is. God help you if you stand in my way. Like, I'm going to get it done. And also, people who believe in our mission, they're not going anywhere also. Right. They are there to support us. They've been our supporters for long term. They're going to be there. And there is something to say when you know what your mission and your purpose is and you are actively fulfilling it, it draws people to you. They want to get behind you.
And they'll probably double down if that funding is, taken away from you. I believe that people are your greatest resource, and people are inherently good by nature. Environment, situations, that obviously changes. I'm not foolish, but for the most part, people want to do the right thing. And given the opportunity for an amazing organization like Defy with amazing success stories like your own, I want you to share with the people how they can help if they're interested in helping after hearing your story, and what that looks like, where they can find you, and just give it all to us, brother.
Yeah, so the ways that you can help are, of course, if you want to reduce your tax burden, if you want to reduce your taxable income, you could definitely support one of our EITs. It costs $2,000 to put an EIT as an entrepreneur in training. It costs $2,000 to put one person through our CEO of Your New Life program to provide them with the opportunities. And you're just not providing it for them. That's interrupting a generational cycle of incarceration. So that's one way to support. Second way is come to prison with us. I want you to give, yes, but don't just do that. I want you to roll up your sleeves, come to prison, be a coach, be a mentor, meet the people that we serve. Screw Hollywood and screw what they're putting out there. Come see the real stuff. Come see what prison is really about and see who these people are. That's another way to get involved. And you can go to defyventures.org or find me on LinkedIn, John Jackson. I promise you send me a message on LinkedIn. I will respond. Use the crap out of LinkedIn and use it as a networking tool. So reach out to me, send me a message, just tell me, hey, I want to come to prison, and I'll find a way to. I will find a chapter near you, or I'll get you out here. We'll get you to prison and do some coaching and some mentoring, and also have a great time in prison.
I want to come to prison again, but as a mentor, not on the other side of the bars this time. Listen, brother, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, for your heart, for your mission. There is no mistake that you are on the path that you're on. I can't wait to cross paths with you again and volunteer. I will make it to one of these, and I know that once I do, my heart is just going to be exploding to see how I can help more. But the least that I could do is get you this platform, and I hope that we can shine more light on this amazing program, spread the love, and bring some more dollars your way so you can make some more impact. Because for $2,000 to bring one incarcerated individual through a program that will not only, as you said, change their life, but the lives of everyone that comes after them. So instead of teaching them the criminal way of life, like you unfortunately learned, we're teaching them the entrepreneurial way of life, which is the fabric of this country. So I want to end on that. What you guys are doing is nothing short of a miracle, because you're taking the ugliest part of society. Capitalism is a beautiful system, in my opinion, which leaves a lot of people behind because it's merit-based, and you're teaching them how to be entrepreneurial, fend for themselves, fish, and just become the best fishermen, fisher people, whatever you want to call it. And that is also the American way. Yeah. So holy shit, kudos to you. Kudos to Defy. Thank you for doing God's work, brother. I can't wait till we cross paths again. We're going to have all that information in the bio. Thank you again, John. Thank you, Defy Ventures. And thank you all for tuning in to the Real Mentors podcast. As always, let's get it.